So this video is going to cover drawing the human face in different styles, and we're going to go over some of the core fundamental information you're going to need to draw believable and engaging faces. Stay tuned. It's me, thanks for tuning in. I'm Renato, and as always this video is powered by conceptstart.net, the place where you can go for some instant art inspiration. Now, drawing the face then is the first point of contact and engagement that the user sees in a drawing and in general real life. So understanding the core fundamentals of what makes a face human is how we can connect with the audience and make this relatable. So we kind of learn the rules of the face, and then we can kind of play with them and break them and shape them however we please. So long as we've got the basics in place, they're gonna translate and engage with our audience. So let's get straight into some drawing now. There's going to be a lot of information to take in, but it's going to be worth it in the end, and we can't beat around this bush. So just starting out with some face practice, drawing a neutral expression that I'll use in this demo. I start off by utilising some basic guidelines and markers that I can use to build up the face. I find the largest shapes first and then work within them. I then compare these shapes to each other using the lines and markers to consider the distances between them. This helps me to place them with more accuracy. I keep refining until I'm happy with the results so far. To shade in, I start with a middle grey value and then work in my shadows and light areas to build up the volumes of the face. I keep comparing my drawing with the reference to make sure the lights and darks are built up correctly to accurately define the features. Okay, so my finished version isn't identical. I should have really kept refining and fixing errors such as the facial proportions and lighting, and I should have not really moved on to the shading until the drawing was near perfect in the first place. But it'll do the job for demonstrating some key information that I'm about to give you now. So as you can see, the face typically has a set structure. We can break the face down into ratios that will help us to eventually draw accurate faces from our imagination. If we take a circle and break it into thirds, we can start to apply these ratios. The middle line being the brow line, we keep on breaking up these main sections into smaller segments, and we can see the patterns of division across the face. Cheekbone to cheekbone is 2/3 the size of the circle across. The mouth is roughly 1/4, the eyes are roughly 1/6 of the circle, and so on. You should pause and study this frame, because by understanding these ratios, you'll be able to apply more accurate features to your drawings in the future. So for the side view, we see how more ratios appear, and when the face is drawn from an angle. Foreshortening will occur, which means the lengths of these ratios will distort based on the viewing angle. Females are very similar to men in terms of the ratio, except there are some key differences you need to consider. So the chin and bone structure in general is less pronounced. Their eyebrows are placed higher above their eyes, and their eyes are usually larger. Same with their lips, they're larger and generally more fuller, more round and pout. Their eyelashes are typically longer, and they tend to have smaller noses. Drawing men is usually more forgiving as you can distort the ratios a lot more. People regarded as being more beautiful are usually defined by more accurate placement of features and also symmetry, so just be mindful of this.
Okay.
So last episode we looked at ellipses, and now we're using them to better understand the contours of the face. This will help us when shading and to better understand the 3D nature of the face because it's not flat. Eyelids wrap around the eye like lips wrap around the mouth. They react to the curve and they have volume to them, so we need to consider this when drawing them. Also, eyes are like balls connected on a pole. They move together at the same time.
Ow.
Overall, understanding ellipses will help us to describe the form and help us to shade and place our lines more effectively. We can break the skull up into sections. The first being a ball for the cranium with 1/6 of either side chopped off. The second part is the jaw that sits below the ball. Next we add in the top part of the jaw and the nose. So imagine a pin going through the centre of a ball. This connects the upper and lower jaw together. And then finally we can add in the remaining bits such as the eye sockets and refine any angles. Now overlapping parts of the skull and jaw are muscles that hold everything in place. These muscles are responsible for pulling and pushing the jaw and creating all types of different facial expressions. These muscles contract and expand, causing markings on the surface of the face to appear. The skin reacts like the Earth's surface reacts when the plates underneath it collide to cause an earthquake. And so we see how the flesh or skin appears depends on the contraction of the muscles beneath it.
Okay.
Young flesh is firmer than old skin, so less wrinkles will appear. We should also consider that over time the skin sags, that certain emotions begin to crease our face like warm boots. We should factor these things in when drawing specific types of faces. This brings us to facial markings.
Ooh.
I've aged the drawing for now to show the results of a face over time, kind of show how the wrinkles would appear and how the emotions have had a part to play in the appearance of the face over time, how the skin becomes less firm and so on. When we begin to memorize the sizes and shapes of muscles and bones that sit beneath the skin, the surface of the face, we'll then be able to identify the lines and bumps in the skin that enable us to better portray with more accuracy the true subtleties of the face. These facial markings play a huge part in describing the face, so by placing them correctly, they'll help us to express appropriate emotions, help us to define the volumes of the face, and also help us to better shade the drawing by understanding the catchment areas for light and shadow. So bear in mind that wrinkles don't define the look of a person's face. It's the larger forms such as the bone structure and the planes of the face to create the ultimate likeness, and in some cases the deeper creases. So let's look at breaking the face down into planes. We can start off with some basic planes and then build these into more form changes to better describe the shape. Memorizing these planes of the face will serve you no end in the future when drawing faces, especially when drawing from your imagination. So now we're using the sphere test to determine the value of light for each plane. The value basically means how intense the light will appear at that particular point. If we was to give it a score, then 10 would be the brightest and 0 would be no light at all. So we basically utilize how the light appears on the ball from the given light source, and then consider where the face planes are positioned in relation to the light source, and then we match the position against a similar point on the sphere to get the value. So this allows for more consistent lighting across the face.
Wow!
We can see just how quickly the face becomes three-dimensional simply by lighting it up based on the sphere test. So that's a lot of information to take in, but these are some of the most important bits of information that I believe will serve you as an artist and help you to draw believable and engaging faces by understanding these core fundamental principles. So now I'm going to draw some faces and incorporate all of what we've learned here so far. I'm also going to go over some basic techniques of how to approach drawing the faces, and I'm going to utilize the face practice generator that I created. This generator coincides with the information learned here by suggesting various tasks. Click the generate button and slowly but surely you're going to be very competent with understanding all these core fundamental principles that I've just talked about. There's a PSD file which you can also download and use. It works in conjunction with the generator, so go check that out. But first, let's get to some drawings and see what I can come out with, alright? You'll notice that I'm always starting with a vertical and horizontal cross point. Where they intersect is where to place the eyebrows and ultimately the lines and the other features that follow on from that. The generator will suggest these coordinates for you, so simply match the red line and the blue line coordinates, and where they intersect is where you have your intersection cross points for the brown line. So I'm always starting with a circular shape for the base of the head, but then we can use other shapes such as squares and triangles for the shape of the face. So when using the shapes together, we maintain the center line and run it along the second shape to make sure it's basically one large shape with a consistent ellipse line that runs down the center of it, or the center facing point. And considering all the information we've just gone over, try to place the features in place and begin to express the emotion accordingly. So it's important to use reference for the expression, the type of face and the age of the person and so on, and then we can extrapolate based on reality how it can appear in a more cartoony appearance. Where are the eyebrows positioned? What are the lips doing? Where will the facial markings appear? And based on the muscles and bones underneath the surface and so on. So for these cartoon faces we can have more fun, as we don't really need to consider realism. So we can play with shapes, we can push and pull the features, but just bear in mind that they need to relate and be within a certain proximity to each other based on the ratios explored earlier in the video. If you want to draw some really funny faces, then you can use the funny face generator. There's some crazy shapes to be explored for some really bizarre faces. If you want to go on and shade in the faces, then consider drawing in ellipses to better understand the 3D nature of the surface, and this will allow you to understand better how the light will wrap across the form and where the light falls off to determine the lights and the shadows. Okay, so that's the approach I take when drawing cartoony faces. Turned out alright, some of them, I think. I'm going to move on to a more serious demo now. Realistic faces take a bit more effort and a bit more focus, so let's see what I come out with, and let's take it from there. attempt at a lifelike face from imagination, so it's not terrible. Yeah, it's a little plastic. The facial expression could be more emphasized, maybe. Some of the kind of the wrinkles in the head would probably be a little bit more pronounced. She's probably had a bit of Botox in there, which wasn't in the brief, and it kind of just came out naturally. I'm gonna learn from this and keep on pushing, yeah, which is what it's ultimately all about, right? It's about practicing and keep pushing, and learning from your mistakes, understanding why something doesn't look right, and adapting and evolving. So to conclude, drawing accurate faces is pretty tough, especially shading them and getting the lighting correct. To have it wrap around the form and just making it believable. It's hard, but it's not impossible, and I think all it takes is a solid foundation of understanding the basic principles that lie beneath the face. I guess it all starts from creating an accurate line drawing, an accurate base, because, you know, if you don't have the base accurate, then it will soon be exposed when you start to light it and start to create the volumes, which are defined by the lights and the darks. So bear in mind, when it comes to drawing, you should understand the bone structure, the muscles that go around the face and connect parts of the face, understand the eyes, how they move, understanding the ellipses of the face, which help to define the volumes, which is going to help you to shade the face better, understanding where the fall-offs are, getting the proportions right, getting the features right, getting the lighting right and correct. This understanding the facial markings, which are a result of the muscles contracting and pulling in various places where it pinches the skin, you know, through the different emotions, like here on the forehead, things like this. You know, understanding all these different marks and just having it embed and etch deep into our visual vocabulary is going to allow us to draw faces from imagination like it's second nature. Face planes as well, face planes. Yeah, understand face planes. They're invaluable. So until the next episode, where we're going to go over gesture drawing and figure drawing, and understanding various things about how to create dynamic movements and exaggeration of poses, and to create more compelling, engaging figures. That's all from me, and I will see you later.